What's up everybody, it's Brandon from Attack of the Fanboy, showing off some Dead by Daylight gameplay on the Nintendo Switch, which at the very end of the video I also have, around the 5:30 mark, some PC gameplay at low settings, 720p, 30 FPS, to kind of see if I can emulate as close as I could what the Switch has. Now, to be fair, the Switch, I believe, does run lower textures and lower settings overall, minus maybe lighting, the fog, draw distance. And you'll see that in the video. Another big difference is like the menus. The menus really hitch inside the Switch version, as you may have just saw. Loading times are longer. I cut it out in the video, but loads between matches can take up to a minute. It's a competent port. And as you'll see here, here's another thing that's a little weird. Your offerings aren't outlined properly. That one, I don't know. It's just like every little texture in the Switch version is at its lowest possible, like beyond even what the PC can do, right? It's lower than probably, like we're talking going in the INI and going inside actual files to get it lower than what you can do in the game itself. But overall, you'll see in the gameplay, I feel it's a mostly competent port. It maintains the look and feel of the game, the pace of the game. I believe there was a focus on lighting overall, over like textures and texture loading, because yeah, textures take quite a while to load. I know that's an issue in the base game, but it's more noticeable in the Switch version when it goes from muddy to slightly less muddy. If there's a couple issues I have overall with the Switch port, as you'll see when you're playing, it does like to stutter. There is noticeable micro stutter, and whenever there's a light source on you, so like the killer's gaze there, or like a lamp or fire, is when the frame rate really does take a bit of a dip. Right, you'll go from like a relatively steady 30 with the micro stutter to dropping about, I'd say, again, this is armchair, but I'd say 27, 25. Like it's a very noticeable dip whenever there's like someone with light chasing you, whenever you're near a light source. And that said, again, it's a competent port. Have we seen better ports on the Switch? Very much so. Prettier compromises? Very much so. But if you really need your Dead by Daylight fix, it's not by any means broken. I don't feel it's any better or worse than the other console ports, minus obvious degradation of visuals. And the frame rate issues, the texture loading, these are things I feel are going to be patched in time. But as it stands right now, my biggest complaint so far is I'd say it's the price point. And I can go into more detail with the article itself, but it really, unless you have only a Nintendo Switch, or you really, and I mean really, want your portable fix of Dead by Daylight, it's a little hard to recommend this port outside of the technical limitations, right? As you can see here, we're now in the warehouse from Saw, and this is what I really want to include, because you can definitely tell when this map, like just how degraded textures are to make the game look. And not to mention running around, you can actively see certain textures just haven't loaded. They're very muddy. There's just no clarity and definition. And you have to remember, this is playing on docked, right? I'm playing the docked version of the game right now. Handheld's not any prettier. And here's some footage from first person with the killer as well. Figured better perspective is on top of everything. But yeah, everything you are seeing right now is plugged into the dock, running. They claim 1080p. I have no real way to test that personally, but I want to take them for their word. I didn't see anything really dynamically scaling. I didn't see it just becoming blurrier or sharper as I played, which is kind of a good indication from a casual perspective that the resolution is being tweaked. But the biggest drawbacks are, yeah, textures. Textures are given the absolute axe in this. The menus hitch and load, but when you're in game, it's not terrible. When the textures do actually load on time, it's competent enough. Again, this is going to be the key word, is competent. But outside of that, it's not as noticeable, the degradation, when you're in an actual open map with the trees and you've got actual like brick walls and boxes. Like it's not as compressed, say, like the Saw level, where it's very much everything is brought together, and it's easy to see that, yeah, this port, that's where they took the hit visually. I also believe there's more textures to load in that map, so therefore the texture loading gets a bit overwhelmed, so it's just not also fully processing everything. As you also note in this video, I'm a terrible killer, please don't mind. That said, like I said, it's a competent port. And docked versus handheld it's definitely more noticeable what gets degraded. The textures take an even larger hit. The shadow resolutions and the bitmaps take a larger hit. Like, in docked, looks you know, they're blurry, but there's not as much pixelation on the edges of it as you can see like in motion, where you will very much notice that in handheld. Like that is apparent. So the shadow resolution isn't high, but they're not the worst I've seen. Handheld, you will notice. It seems the priority again was lighting. Really was the lighting, the draw distance, the fog. You know, the things that could really give you a competitive advantage if they were or were not there in this game, because the lighting provides a lot of context-sensitive clues if you're being hunted. Or, you know, the draw distance, being able to see someone from a distance, like the killer's hunting you, he's hunting them. So yeah, here's the PC settings at low, 720. I had to go in the INI and tweak this myself. So I made sure it was locked to 720, made sure it was locked to 30, I put it to the low settings. Didn't do any tweaking outside of that, so I want to see what the base level low in this game looks like. And you see I'm going to compare the characters. At the front of the video, you see I did that earlier too, some of that texture loading. But even on low, the textures are substantially cleaner. The actual models don't look like potatoes, where in the Switch, they are very rough to look at. But yeah, so we're going to close it out with just a full match on PC, so you can go back and compare with what you just saw on the Switch, but you can kind of see what I'm getting at is, even at its lowest settings on PC, locked to 30, locked to 720, it's still, it makes it more obvious just what had to be cut in the Switch version to make it work and make it run, and also kind of shows like what I'm talking about when I say like the frame rate does have the micro stutter, it does have the drops when you have someone chasing you with lighting. It's by no means a bad port. It's just that the price of the port and the fact that because frame rate and performance isn't 100%, it's a little difficult for me to recommend at a $40 price point. Yes, it comes with additional killers. Yes, it had, well, more than the base killers, obviously. I think it goes up to the Spirit. You have more survivors, you have more maps. Like, there's still more in this port than just buying it stock on, say, like PC, which typically goes on sale for about $9. You have to remember a lot of the things that are unlocked in this port are things you can earn in-game, right? Outside of the licensed characters who you always have to pay cold hard cash for, the stuff they're giving you in the Switch port aren't exactly the items that you have to pay money for if you choose to grind. Not to mention there's no progression carryover, which I know that's not every game on the planet. But when you figure how much grinding is involved with Dead by Daylight for progression, for getting your skills and different killers and different survivors and everything else that's kind of going on with this game, it's definitely a little disheartening if you're going to try and swap over from like a PC or a PS4 because you need that portable Dead by Daylight fix. You're not going to be able to carry it over. I mean, Warframe has the same issues. I'm not going to knock it too hard for that because, I mean, that's a game that has hundreds and thousands of hours of progression that would be amazing to have carried over from PC to the Switch. But it didn't. It is what it is. But it does make that, you know, we're talking about a free-to-play game versus a $40 investment here. I feel maybe if they had sold it at a $20 base and then the $40 with all this extra content, like a two SKUs, but I can see why they don't want to do that either and confuse people. I don't know. I really feel like this port works well enough that, like I said, you're seeing the PC now, you saw the Switch earlier. It's not inherently worse. Like, it's definitely not as good as PC low, but we're talking, it's, I think, playing in the same ballpark. It's just, can you justify spending $40 for it on the Switch? And as I've noted, I feel like if that's all you own is the Switch, that's all you have, then you know what, this might be a decent purchase. If you really want to play Dead by Daylight, Halloween's coming up, it's a fun game to play with friends. There is no local wireless though. Do bear that in mind. You do all have to connect to the internet. There's no local tying together through the Wi-Fi. You will need Nintendo Switch Online, so that's another fee you have to look into, right? And there's just a couple of like stipulations there. And of course, if you're a hardcore Dead by Daylight fan and you absolutely need to play this portable, like you have to, then I guess the good news is, it's, like I said, the key word here is competent. It will mostly suffice. You will notice the hitching on the menus. You will notice the micro stutter and the frame drops when like you're around a light source, anything casting any sort of cascading light. But aside from that, I'll let you guys go through, watch the rest of this video, compare the earlier parts, figure it out for yourself. If you feel that performance is too much for you of a loss, even though, like I said, it's not bad, but it's still noticeable. If that's too much for you, or if, you know, looking at this PC as low as you really can go without getting too crazy with the game files, if it's too wide a difference and you just can't justify that. Other than that, like I said, I'll let this video play out. It's got about another 2 minutes left in it. It's just me trying to run from the killer, and I'm gonna spoil it now. I die. I totally get hooked and die, and I'm a terrible, terrible player of this game. So aside from that, Again, go back and forth, compare and contrast the different angles of the video, see what you think. I got the little mark here at the bottom showing you which part of this, you know, the video is what. And just make it, this is one of those kind of things you really have to look at it for yourself and figure out, is this the kind of sacrifice you're willing to make? It's not the worst downgrade I've ever seen. It runs well enough, but can you stomach paying $40 for this port? I'll just leave it at that. Alright, there'll be more in the written review. If you guys are watching this video on YouTube and you haven't clicked over on Attack of the Fanboy, I'll have the article listed in the description. And if not, and you're watching this embedded, thanks for reading, and thanks for your patronage. Until the next one, though, this has been Brandon with Attack of the Fanboy. I hope you all have a good one.
Ah!